Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap. I hope all of you guys are having a wonderful day. My day has been pretty solid. Today is June 19th. It is Juneteenth. It is the day where we celebrate, the abolishment of slavery, and all the things within the civil rights movement that have, given opportunities to people of color, and even other people who were, unfortunately enslaved, like the Irish and so many more. Um, Great holiday overall, federal holiday as well, so people aren't working today. But that's not what the holiday is about truly. It's about celebrating, the abolishment of slavery and the rights of our fellow man. So, happy Juneteenth, everyone. Today is a news day. It is Thursday, and this is your evening news recap on all the news throughout the day that I come across, giving you my topic as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Of course, there was not an episode yesterday. We had some technical difficulties, but I got around it. And all of the news from yesterday will also be in today's news recap. Of course, there also still will not be an episode tomorrow. Taking the day off, I'm going to spend some time with my friends. But outside of that, all the news will likely go into Saturday's news recap. So hopefully you all enjoyed this episode. Let's get right into it. Moving on into the Trump administration segment, as we have quite a few topics here today. It's been a busy past 2 days. The first thing we have is a far-right flag was flown atop the Small Business Administration. The Appeal to Heaven flag, a flag associated with the Stop the Steal movement and Christian nationalism, was flown off over the Small Business Administration Agency last week in D.C. My apologies, excuse me. On June 11th, Kelly Loeffler, former Georgia senator and current administrator of the SBA, participated in a ceremony where the far-right flag was raised over the agency under the U.S. flag. According to Wired, the flag was up for less than a day. The United States is a nation where we have the freedom of religion. It is not a Christian nationalist nation and never will be. These flags should not be going anywhere near government facilities as they go against everything our country stands for. It's disgusting. People have the opportunity to believe in and choose who they want to believe in. Clearly, nobody paid attention to the Pilgrims because that's what they came to Plymouth for. What the hell? That's what they came to Plymouth for on the Mayflower. They came so they could have the opportunity to express their freedom of religion, essentially, because they weren't allowed to in England. Quick little history for you there if you didn't know. I would hope so, because we all learned that in first grade, most likely. Um, it's so interesting that people think that the United States is some Christian nation. It's not. You can walk down the street in whatever town and see a church or a temple for any other religion besides Christianity. We are not a Christian nation. We never will be. That is one of the great things about the United States is people who live here have the opportunity to express what they want to believe in and believe what they want to believe in. Moving on, and some terrifying news. Trump says he does not want a total ceasefire with Iran. He wants total and complete victory. Trump has said Iran is a few weeks away from a nuclear weapon, and he now wants total victory, not a ceasefire. Trump said, "I'm not looking for a fight, but if it is a choice between fighting and having a nuclear weapon, you have to do what you have to do." Trump says that the U.S. is not looking for a ceasefire, but would rather have total and complete victory over Iran. Trump added, "You know what victory is? No nuclear weapon." He has also denied that many of his supporters don't support the war when many say otherwise. Congress hasn't declared a war, yet Trump is out here waging one anyways. Thousands of supplies, weapons, vehicles, and likely troops as well have been flying out to the Middle East. Hundreds of military planes have been seen on flight trackers in the last 4 days, and it hasn't stopped. Under the War Powers Resolution of 1773, Trump is required by Congress to notify, or required by the Constitution, my apologies, to notify Congress 48 hours before military action, but he hasn't. I guess he couldn't care less with everything else in his administration. But I mean, what are we doing? It is one of the bare minimum things to do to notify Congress. 48 hours, not very much time, 2 days. and they make the decision whether to go to war or not. Yet Trump is bringing us into war anyways, without congressional approval, without approval from the people. It's a useless war that is not approved and doesn't need to happen. In more terrifying news, Trump has also approved plans to strike Iran. Trump has told staffers that he has approved plans to strike Iran, but is waiting to see if Iran will give up on their nuclear program before giving the final order. According to Reuters, Trump yesterday informed senior aides that he had approved plans for striking Iran, but he has yet to still seek congressional approval. This is terrifying. Of course, as just mentioned, Trump is required by the Constitution to notify Congress of the war, and he hasn't done it. Yet he's approving plans to start a war. Iran isn't going to back down. We all know that, and they have made that very clear. We're going to end up on a war without congressional approval, and not only is that okay, but it's against the Constitution. It is a constitutional crisis that we have continuously allowed, our government has continuously allowed. Something needs to be done to stop Donald Trump and his administration, because continuously we are having to deal with constitutional crises that shouldn't be happening in the first place. In other news, there's been another TikTok ban extension. Trump has extended the TikTok ban once again. On Thursday, Trump gave the third extension, which will last 3 months in order for TikTok to sell. He wrote in a post on True Social, "I've just signed the executive order extending the TikTok deadline, extending the deadline for TikTok's closing 90 days, September 17th, 2025. Thank you for your attention to this matter." So same time, September, everybody. I don't think this app will ever be banned or sold, and I hope not. If it's going to be banned, I hope it sells, because TikTok is, I'm going to be honest right here, TikTok is my only source of income, really, and although it's not a living wage that I make, slow motion is better than no motion, and finding a job in the current economy, especially where I live, where there is jack shit, is impossible right now. So, this is some great news to hear that the TikTok ban has been extended, and I'd appreciate it if you'd go show my TikTok some love so I can afford a McChicken. But please don't ban TikTok. That is like the only thing I got going for me right now, financially wise. I would be stressing. I would be in a hole, to say the least. But in other news, some very unfortunate news. Trump is ending services for the LGBTQ youth. The Trump administration is ending specialized services for specialized suicide prevention services for the LGBTQ plus youth on the 988 Suicide Crisis Lifeline. Anyone who needs help can call this line, but the line usually offers specially trained counselors, often with other similar life experiences for high-risk groups like veterans and LGBTQ plus youth. The federal government's Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, SAMHA or SAMHSA, announced on Tuesday that they would end the services for the LGBTQ plus youth on July 17th. SAMHSA said in a statement, it will no longer silo LGBT plus youth services. Everyone who contacts the 988 Lifeline will continue to receive access to skilled, caring, culturally competent crisis counselors who can help with suicidal substance misuse or mental health crises. This is a devastating blow for children within the U.S. or the LGBTQ plus community, especially trans kids. Things like gender dysphoria not only have huge impacts on someone's day-to-day life, but especially their mental state. 46% of transgender youth consider suicide, and it gets even worse when you look at adults. People need to realize that these programs not only are critical as helping people express themselves and understanding themselves, but they are necessary to help prevent people from killing themselves. Taking away these programs will, and I mean will, lead to a rise in the number of suicides within the LGBTQ community, and that is extremely dangerous. So please, if you need help, reach out to someone. Take it from someone to me who has spent time in quite a facility, and gone through a few other things. It's better to reach out and it's better to reach out to someone than just sit alone. It really is. There are people out there who care about you and are willing to help you. So reach out, talk to your loved ones. In other news, the State Department will require social media reviews for student visas. In another move against foreign students, the State Department says it will review social media accounts as part the process of offering visas. All students applying for visas will have to set social media profiles to public, according to the State Department, claiming it was part of excluding applicants applicants, holy English, who pose a threat to national security. According to the State Department, failure to do so will result in rejection. Holy. Honestly, I'm not surprised by this. I honestly was surprised that this isn't something we did already. Realistically, I don't think this would be a big deal if it wasn't a way to ban pro-Palestine supporters and anyone else who goes against the Trump administration from coming in to the United States and getting an education, but likely that will be the case. This is one of those rare occurrences where I think if it wasn't done in the current political climate, this probably isn't the worst idea for national security reasons. A few other things just to see what, people are saying, because here, we'll think about it from like an employer way. Your employer or someone who is looking to hire you is going to look you up. They're going to search you out on social media, see the type of person you are, and of course, the Trump administration is going to use this in a politically motivated way, which an employer hopefully wouldn't do. Realistically, your employer, just as your employer would look at your Instagram, it is smart for anyone applying to be a visa to have their social medias looked at, At least that's my opinion on it. If you guys disagree, let me know in the comments down below. Anyhow, moving right on into the Israel versus Iran conflict, we have a few topics here today, only about 3 that tend to be a little bit shorter, but it's an actively going war. Israel and Iran have continuously striked each other and attacked each other. There has been no change there. First topic we have is the U.S. is moving another carrier into the Middle East. A third aircraft carrier will be sent to the Middle East after a second was deployed on Tuesday. The USS Gerald Ford is slated to deploy next week to the 6th Fleet Area of Operations. According to officials, this deployment has been scheduled for months and will oversee operations in the waters surrounding Europe and Africa. But this carrier will join large amounts of military equipment being moved into the area. As mentioned, this has been planned for a while now, but having 3 carriers in the Middle East is a lot of assets that could and likely will be used. We only have 11 aircraft carriers in the United States, and they are a very sizable and important part of our Navy. So bringing 3 to a similar location worries me a little bit, not just for damages, as, these carriers are expensive, but, plans for the ships. What do you plan to use? Essentially weapons. I mean, it is a airport on water, pretty much. Like, that is, I mean, not to mention like how like insane that is. Like, thousands of years ago that would have been impossible, but that it's crazy. We have 3 of essentially the most important parts of the US military as a whole in the Middle East, when we have, I believe, 3 other ones deployed in different locations. I know we have 2 in Japan, and I think we have 1 in the Pacific near the Philippines, or somewhere around there in the Indo-Pacific region. So, I mean, half of our aircraft carrier fleet is currently not even in the United States, which does kind of worry me a little bit. If we were to lose one of those vessels, that would be a huge blow to the United States Navy and military strength. In other news, American diplomats are leaving Israel. The U.S. State Department has begun evacuating all non-essential diplomats and their families from the U.S. Embassy in Israel. A government plane evacuated a number of individuals who asked to leave the country on Wednesday, according to AP. At this time, citizens have not been warned to evacuate, but the State Department says it will alert citizens if needed. This was going to happen any day now, so I'm not very shocked at all. I'm surprised there wasn't a notice for citizens, but I'm sure if it gets worse, they will be next. But overall, not the most shocking thing. It's kind of expected, especially with an active war going on in the area. In other news, Trump will make a decision on Iran within the next 2 weeks. Caroline Leavitt has told reporters that Trump will make his final decision on striking Iran within the next 2 weeks. She told reporters during her daily briefing, based on the fact that there is a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make the final decision on whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. Levitt said, Iran has all that it needs to keep a nuclear weapon, and all they need is a decision from its supreme leader to do that. Okay, Iran doesn't have nukes. They have nuclear energy, or did until Israel bombed it. There was no reason for Israel to attack Iran or anything of that matter, and they're going to drag American troops into it, which is unnecessary and shouldn't happen. The United States set up Iran's nuclear energy plants, I believe after Soviet involvement within the nation. We had a deal as well, and Trump threw it out for no good reason. We're shooting ourselves in the foot here. We really are. The United States needs to stay out of the Middle East and Israel, as both have continuously brought us into unnecessary wars, not only throughout my lifetime, but throughout, really just the entire millennial generation and Gen Z at this point. Maybe not the entire generation, but a sizable amount of the millennial generation. We're shooting ourselves in the foot here, as I said. Continuously involving ourselves with Israel is very clear that it is a problem. It puts us into wars that we shouldn't be in the first place. So that's my piece to say on that. I've been very clear about how my opinion on Israel, and how I think that it is arguably a bad thing for the United States to be in alliance with Israel. Of course, it is good for U.S. relations and all of that throughout the Middle East, and putting out U.S. influence in the Middle East and all those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, Israel is causing more problems for us than it is actively helping. Even within our government, within global politics, within this war, there's so many issues, and I strongly believe it's in our own interest as the United States of America to kind of shift away from Israel, or maybe the CIA does something and gets someone else in office who is a little bit worse than the current leader, or not worse. That's the wrong word. Who is better than the current leader, not worse. My apologies. Moving on into the other news segments, the first thing we have today is Tucker Carlson, out of all people, cooked Ted Cruz in an interview. In an interview with Senator Ted Cruz about Israel, ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson destroyed the senator when he was quizzed on Iran. The two had a back and forth on Cruz's backing of Israel. Cruz struggled to answer questions, which prompted Carlson to say, "You don't know anything about Iran." This came when Cruz couldn't name the population of Iran, and Carlson continued, "You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple." He was asked about the ethnicities, and Cruz said Iran was Persian and predominantly Shia Muslims. Carlson was asked the percentage, which frustrated the senator. Cruz said, "Okay, I'm not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran." Cruz would also be questioned about his AIPAC support, and would also make many bizarre claims, like Iran wanting to kill Trump and the United States was helping strike Iran, which the U.S. government said wasn't the case. As somebody who grew up and has a family filled to the brim with MAGA, this is great. I've seen a lot of Tucker Carlson throughout the years, and I've always thought his claims were outlandish and stupid. But this will turn heads. It really will. MAGA likes Tucker Carlson a lot. They can't just, Trump and his administration, or the haters, can't just come out and say he's a liar and anti-American, because he was the face of right-wing media for years and still is in a large aspect. If you haven't seen the interview and you want to watch Ted Cruz make a fool of himself, I recommend it. But of course, I'll always update you on the topics like this. But truly, circling back, if you will, this will turn heads within MAGA. And, as we've seen with reports, MAGA does not support this war or there are a large amount of MAGA who do not support this war between Israel and Iran. And, nobody does within the United States. I wouldn't be surprised if, morale would be considered at an all-time low because of this, because nobody wants to fight this war, and the fact that Ted Cruz doesn't know the population of Iran, as something that is a Google search away, when he seeks to essentially, as Tucker Carlson said, topple the nation, is bizarre. You can't do the bare minimum amount of research on a country that you seek to destroy. We've been fighting this country for years. We've continuously gone back and back again to fight this country, and you don't know the population of it. I mean, what's going on there? In some other interesting news, didn't know this today, but when doing some research on the topic, I also found out that Ted Cruz is not an American-born citizen, and he was born in Canada. Interesting to say the least. But that's just a little fun fact for anyone who didn't know. Anyhow, moving on into some more news, American Airlines has suspended flights to the Middle East. American Airlines has suspended its only route to the Middle East until further notice. The route is the Philadelphia Doha route, which uses Boeing 787-9s. The route will be suspended until June 22nd. In a statement, the airlines wrote, American Airlines has made adjustments to its Doha, Qatar DOH operation, temporarily suspending flights between the DOH and Philadelphia until Sunday, June 22nd. We will continue to monitor the situation with safety and security top of mind and make sure to make any additional adjustments as needed. This is another non-shocking move. Airlines tend to stay out of locations that could see missile action, as they should. But if nothing changes, flights will resume this weekend. So hopefully this doesn't ruin too many people's plans. I don't know how many people are going to the Middle East right now, but people travel. So hopefully this doesn't ruin too many plans. In other news, ICE has been denied access to Dodger Stadium. The Los Angeles Dodgers has said on Thursday that they asked ICE agents to leave the Dodger Stadium after a group of agents arrived in the parking lot near one of the gates. Dozens of masked agents arrived in SUVs and cargo vans near the stadium's E gate, where protesters would also gather after media reports. In a statement on Twitter, the Dodgers wrote, this morning, ICE agents came into Dodger Stadium and requested permission to access the parking lots. They were denied entry to the grounds by the organization. ICE claims the reasoning for them being there had nothing to do with the Dodgers franchise. It's good to see sports teams not allow ICE or other organizations to get involved or use their property, essentially. Politics should stay out of sports. I think, especially since the first Trump administration, we've seen way too much of it, especially within the NFL. It shouldn't be like that in the first place. Sports are a pastime for many Americans, and bringing in politics in it, ruins it for everyone. But, go Giants. Gotta support, my team, I guess. I don't really watch baseball, but I have a Giants jersey, so I guess I could say I'm a Giants fan. Anyhow, the final topic we have today is Florida has suggested creating an Alligator Alcatraz, which would be an ice facility in the Everglades. Florida has suggested a new ice detention center in the Florida Everglades called Alligator Alcatraz. The Florida Attorney General James Uttenmeyer offered the Trump administration a 39 square mile plot, which would be surrounded by alligators and pythons. Uttenmeyer said the virtually abandoned airport facility would have the capacity to house as many as 1,000 criminal aliens. He added it could be up and running as little as a month or two. Great idea. Let's ruin the environment to house people who commit a civil crime. This might be the most MAGA idea yet. We're destroying the environment and building another prison to commit human right violations. Some might call that two birds with one stone. We've got Alcatraz in California. We've got one in Florida. What's next? Alaska? To whoever in the Trump administration is watching my stuff, please do not give them that idea. I know there's one of you out there. I know you won't show yourself, but I know there's one of you out there. This is unnecessary, destroys the environment, and why do we need it? Same as why do we need to reopen and rebuild Alcatraz? It's a waste of taxpayer dollars. Let's be real here. But with that being said, thank you all so much for checking out tonight's evening news recap. Hope you all enjoyed. It's been an interesting one over the past few days. As mentioned at the start of this episode, won't be here tomorrow. My apologies. Going to take a little break, play some Minecraft, do my thing. I'll be sure to show some little images of the things I build. I like sharing those things. So be on the lookout for pictures of the things I build in Minecraft. I'm pretty good at Minecraft. So, hopefully you guys will be amazed, But, other than that, hope you all enjoyed this episode. If you're on YouTube, please consider subscribing. We're on our way to 500 subscribers. Hopefully we can hit that before the end of the summer. But, we never know. Also drop a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know on your takes through all the news from today. If you're on Substack, please consider subscribing. I'll are pledging your support, my apologies. All funds go to me. They help me pay for the things that I'll need to pay for in college, like food, clothing, all that kind of stuff. But if not, you can always subscribe for free. Truly, I do appreciate all forms of support on this content. Wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for you guys. But yeah, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in tomorrow's episode. Later.